So today we're talking about how to run a delivery meeting in Sharktower. So there's lots of different components of Sharktower for anyone that does already know it. This is just kind of one use case that we're talking through today, and we'll be doing lots of these walkthrough Wednesdays where we'll talk about other use cases as well. So today it's Neil and I speaking. Neil, did you want to do a quick intro and then I'll go from there?
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Lindsay. I'm the implementation lead within Sharktower, and I ensure our customers are getting the most value from Sharktower, from onboarding through to using it as a project management tool. Cool,
thank you. So yeah, I'm Lindsay. I'm the Chief Customer Officer and one of the co-founders of Sharktower, and I look after customer success and our customers, again, like Neil, really making sure that they're getting the value that they should be from the tool. So I'm going to talk you through how we would expect a delivery meeting to be run in Sharktower, but I wanted to touch on why first. So in Sharktower, if you don't know the product, it's really about having all of the data in one place. So it's a delivery tool. We do use it for reporting and to get insights from the data that is entered during delivery, but it's a delivery management tool. So we have a plan in Sharktower, which is really the kind of central communication anchor point of the project, and you can run down that during the meeting, which I'll show you. And so you've got a really focused conversation about what's going on in delivery, how are we doing against scope, how does everything fit together, who's dependent on who. So rather than having, I don't know, 10 people poring over a 1,000-line Microsoft project file, which I imagine wouldn't be very enjoyable, or a bunch of people looking at a plan on a page, which is really high level, or people just having an open conversation in a room without actually focusing on anything in particular, it helps focus the conversation a lot better by having the plan in front of you. And then the other side of it is during that meeting, you can also capture actions, obviously, decisions, risks, anything else like that you're discussing during the meeting. And that is all linked to the plan in Sharktower, to any other items of scope. So rather than having, I've got a spreadsheet somewhere with all my meeting actions in and my plan is stored elsewhere and all these kind of silos of data, it's all connected in one place in Sharktower. And then also, instead of people sitting down, noting down their own actions, you've got this clear view of what was discussed in the meeting so that there can be no confusion. And you can email those out afterwards. So everyone's got that same understanding of the truth. You've got that kind of audit trail almost of what was discussed in the meeting. So without further ado, let's dive in. So this is Sharktower. So this is the meetings area of the tool. So if we take this example project, let's say I'm a project manager, I've got a bunch of separate work streams. They're all very interconnected in terms of the work they're doing, but they've all got a kind of accountable owner. So I would have a weekly delivery meeting with each of those leads and really just make sure that they are unblocked. They've got everything they need to, to progress, and just sort of look back at what the previous week held and look forward at any key milestones, any blockers, dependencies, that kind of thing. So I can prepare for the meeting beforehand. So I can sort of make sure, if I know that we need to discuss this risk or this decision, if I add that to the meeting beforehand, it just, again, make sure that we do actually get around to discussing those things. But anyway, without further ado, I will go through the previously captured actions. So as with any good meeting, I am not going to try and run the meeting and capture the actions at the same time. So Neil, my glamorous assistant, is going to be doing that for me. So I would start the meeting by understanding what are the open actions. So I might look at this one and say, you haven't even started this one. What are you blocked on? There's a blockage here, but you haven't actually linked any other related tasks. So can we talk through how I can help unblock you? What are the implications of you being blocked? Do we need to replan in any areas? Why is it 2 weeks overdue? So we would run through these open actions at the beginning of every meeting, and just kind of, usually there'd probably be some people who, despite my pleas, hadn't updated their actions before the meeting. So we might find actually in the meeting, right, no, this is actually done. Okay, great. So we've got a bit of a tidier view. So we would do those kind of updates and understanding of the current actions, and then we would fairly quickly move on to the plan. So this is the plan in Sharktower. This is, as I said, quite a complex program with a lot of dependencies between different teams. And what you're looking at is a visual representation of the entire scope of the project. So you can really see what are the different sort of phases, groupings of work, and how are all the teams connected together. So each line is an item of scope, and the color of the line represents the team that is responsible for carrying out that scope. So what I would do is, if you can see this line down here, this is the today line. So I'm going to follow that down and look back at what's been happening, and look forward as well, and kind of go work stream by work stream and discuss those items. So here we've started this architecture sign-off piece of work, but maybe I know this guy might not have thought ahead enough, or we've got 3 weeks before we actually need to deliver that. But has anyone thought about who needs to sign it off, who's a stakeholder? So kind of encouraging people to think ahead. Have we checked whether they're on holiday? Those items that really need to be ironed out ahead of that dependency, which you can see is going to kick in here. So there's a decision in here that we know that we need to make in terms of who that stakeholder is. So maybe I would take this action off that workstream lead and just kind of go, what, I'll go and run around and find that stakeholder and make sure they're going to be available for that sign off when we need it, and kind of warm them up and that sort of thing. So Neil, if you could sign that decision to me to make sure that ends up on my plate, and then I would kind of take that forward. So moving on, again, sort of following down the today line, we would look at this, this is the digital work stream now. So I'm going to say, well, hang on, looking back to last week, there's actually been a slippage here. So what happened there? We need to talk about it. So obviously we can see that there's a dependency which is now going to be affected. These knock-on pieces of work are going to be affected. So I would kind of say, well, how are we going to do anything about this? Do we need to replan? What's the status? And if we haven't already worked that out before the meeting, then I would expect that, right, Neil, can you raise an action for me? I'm going to work out whether or not there is a knock-on impact to this scope definition and this activity here, or whether we can shorten those activities. So again, just trying to preempt what's coming up here, because we need to start these pieces of work as soon as possible, because they've got knock-on impacts further down the line. So thank you for now assigning that task. And then again, carrying on further down, so there's been another slippage here. So what we might do here is, perhaps this workstream lead has been particularly organised, and we know that there are some changes that we can make to the plan, and we can just do that in the meeting. So unfortunately, this is still slipped, and we've still not resolved that. We actually know that these sprints are all pretty short already. There's not much wiggle room in shortening those, but we do have some contingency in this one here. So we'd have that open conversation, make sure the people who own those specific activities are in the room, aware of it, and then we could just, shift over all these activities to buy ourselves a little bit more time, and we can kind of do that in the meeting because we've made that decision and agreed that. So that's essentially how I would run the meeting. It's about going down that today line, really understanding, focusing the conversation on what's been achieved recently, what hasn't been achieved, where do we need to replan, where do we need to take some actions to get around any worries or concerns that we've got, and then what's coming up, and are we prepared? We probably, once we've gone down that initial upcoming immediate things, we're going to look forward as well to these key milestones. So these flags that you can see here, are we all set for those? Obviously, we've understood that this one has had to slip slightly. Is everyone set for everything else? So it's the weekly meeting, so you kind of just go week by week, but we do also obviously look forward and make sure that we're still driving towards those key outcomes and doing everything that we can to make sure that they don't slip. So that's sort of how I would run the discussion. Obviously, throughout this, Neil has been capturing all the actions. So we've got plenty of, perhaps we've had other discussions, and there's been other bits and pieces that have come out of the conversation where we need to make sure we've got a different stakeholder involved. I find in these meetings, you always iron out something that the workstream lead perhaps hadn't thought of, or other dependencies around things. So we can make sure that we've got all of that ironed out during that meeting. And then I guess, Neil, did you want to do a sort of run through of what you're seeing here and the benefits of why we'd capture those actions in Sharktower?
Sounds good. I'll share my screen. There we go.
Yep. Go for it.
So as Lindsay mentioned, we've captured a bunch of actions and decisions throughout the meeting. What a really cool way we have to save you guys using Word documents and PDFs for meeting minutes. You can end the meeting and add a bit of commentary. So we like to try and encourage people to keep everything into Sharktower. So the commentary maybe could be somebody wasn't able to attend or they're on holiday soon, but try and create work items to have tasks, decisions captured. And you can also show people who didn't attend, but they still get the email summary, which is really cool. So I'll show you here. We click email summary. This is where the demo falls down a little bit. We get a nice email. So there's two types of emails you get from a meeting. You get one that doesn't have action required if there's no task assigned to you, but I've assigned a task to myself. So you get this nice digest of everything that's been discussed in the meeting, everything that's been agreed, key decisions that were raised, and who owns them. And it also tells you
showing the email.
Yeah, can you guys not see that?
No.
Let me.
Well, they'll sort them out. Yeah, so really it's about that kind of everyone having that same understanding of what was agreed. There's no confusion. You've got that audit trail. You can't kind of have someone saying, well, I didn't sign up to that action, because they can come in here, they can see it, and then they can go and go into Sharktower if they don't believe they did get that action. But yeah, it just means that everyone's got that same understanding.
Yeah. And from that email, you can click right into Sharktower to dig a little deeper. And this is also a way to encourage the use of Sharktower. So if you've got senior stakeholders that might not log in as much as you want them to, but if you assign them tasks or there's a important meeting that they weren't able to attend, you can keep everything in that email and click right through back to Sharktower. I think that's it. We'll move on to some questions.
So yeah, Nikki, were there any questions in the chat?
I had two that have come over directly. The first one is, how regularly should you run status meetings?
Cool, thank you. So, I mean, I would probably be, as the delivery lead on that program, I'd be running that every week. I think stuff obviously changes every day and there's always going to be things that come up out of the blue, but you can at least, hopefully by having those weekly discussions, you can preempt them. I think a daily discussion is probably overkill for that audience, but I would definitely do it weekly, because you always want to be keeping, when you've got that many people leading that many different interconnected work streams, I would say you need to be speaking weekly to be able to keep on top of things. I think if it was a smaller project with fewer dependencies or fewer teams, you know, you can perhaps do it less frequently. And I think when it's if by status meeting, it's sort of status reporting, I think for stakeholders, you know, you can do that less frequently as well. But that sort of weekly delivery, like really keeping on top of what's coming up and where do we need to unblock and where do we need to look ahead to that outcome that we're trying to achieve, I would definitely be doing that weekly. Was there another one?
Cool, thank you. There's one through on the chat there. Can you select which stakeholders in the project are due to attend which meetings? And is there a way to see who clicked through, i.e. is that senior stakeholder who doesn't log in often? Can you see if they click on the email?
So in terms of sort of who's in which meetings, yes, absolutely. You know, you can add them as assignees to the meeting, whether or not they, you know, sometimes they won't bother showing up necessarily, but yes, that's exactly the purpose of adding them as an assignee, attendee in the meeting. And then you've also got the record of who did actually attend. And it may be that someone's just a kind of audience member participant and there'll always be that non-attendee person, but at least you can make sure that they receive the summary of the meeting because they'll always be on that email list. In terms of whether or not they did actually click on the link, the only real way to know that is to start, like, do they start showing the behavior that they are actually engaging with the content in Sharktower? So if they've got an action or a decision that they're supposed to be taking or making, then do they complete it, do they comment, do they engage, and then B, you know, even if, so some people, what Neil was saying there was, if you've got if you did take an action in the meeting, you get a specific call to action banner in the email that you click, and then you have to log in. Perhaps you didn't actually take any actions yourself and it's just a summary, so you don't have to log in and click on those links, but the way to tell whether they have, again, is like, are they starting to engage with the content? You know, are they tagging people in comments? Are they commenting on things? Are they moving things around? So that's kind of the best way to work out whether or not they are engaging. We do regular usage reports and reviews with customers. So once a month, we'll sit down and kind of look at like a bit of a leaderboard. We provide a lot of behavioral insights and kind of interesting indicators, and this is how you could be using the tool better or getting more value out of it. But sometimes our leaderboard is almost the thing that provokes the most discussion, because, you know, the champion might say, well, hang on, that person's hardly logged in at all, why are they not logging in? And you do get that overview that way. So we can provide that information, but the best way is really just to, you know, see whether those stakeholders are engaging. If you keep tagging them in comments, they will keep getting push notifications on their mobile, which is a nice way of grabbing their attention. And yeah, you know, sending meeting minute emails. There's also a way to sort of force an email notification to request an update on items as well. So there are ways of luring them back in. Yeah, hopefully that answers that question.
Cool, thank you. And this one's linked to that question. It says, prior to a status report meeting, I like to send a report round of key things to look at prior to the meeting. How can I do that with Sharktower? Can I link to actual plans or tasks or submit notes? Absolutely.
So yeah, that's exactly what I would do as well, sort of preempt those. So I, as the person running it, would probably go down that today line on my own first. So I would say, well, I need to find out about the slippage. I need to ask whether there's any wiggle room in that knock-on activity. I need to ask what the impact of that further down the line outcome is. So I would send out those questions to my workstream leads as prep beforehand, and I would expect them to have thought about answers, you know, not bullshitty answers, but, you know, actual, okay, no, I haven't thought about that, but this is the person I'm going to speak to in order to work out whether or not we do have any contingency there, that kind of thing. So I would send those out beforehand, and I would expect each of my leads to kind of do that preparation beforehand. And yes, absolutely. So every item, sort of entity in Sharktower has a unique URL, so you can send a link to the specific activity. So wait, no, I'm not showing my screen. You can send a link to the specific activity. It's there in the URL. Or to the task, or to the work item, or just to the plan itself. So yes, absolutely, that's exactly how I would run it as well.
Cool, thank you. And the last message I've got is, how do the actions from the meeting relate to the Kanban? Are they directly linked?
Yes, absolutely. So all of that lower level scope, whether it's a task, an action, a decision, a risk, an issue, that's always available in the Kanban. There's various ways to see it. So what I showed at the beginning was my Kanban, the project Kanban filtered by that meeting. If I wanted to look at the scope for a specific sprint, I could filter by that activity. I can filter by just the work that's assigned to me, or just the work that's assigned to a specific person. So every single item of that level in the project is visible in the Kanban. It just all depends what view you want and where you want to filter. The idea is it should also be visible in the meeting where the action was captured. It should also be visible in the activity where, you know, on the plan, I've broken that activity down into lower level scope, so I can also see them there. So if you've connected all the data well, then you should see it in multiple places, but every item of that level does appear in the Kanban. Yeah.
Great, thank you. No more messages from chat.
Okay. I guess, did anyone want to ask any questions out loud? Open to hearing them. Or does everyone want to go and eat their lunch? You're welcome to. Nope. Okay. Interrupt me if you like whilst I'm wrapping up. But yeah, if there's no other questions, then there's lots of resources. So if you want to request a demo or a trial or anything, you can come to our website, and you should see some big buttons to allow you to do that. We've got a blog that you can subscribe to, and in next week's webinar, we will be talking about reporting. So we've talked a lot today about the kind of data that's already in Sharktower, that plan data, the actions you're capturing in the meeting. All of that is used for reporting. So we aggregate that up to give you various views for different stakeholders, and we can do lots of insights based on the data that's in there. So we're talking a bit more about that next week. Thank you very much. I think we'll leave it there.
Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, Neil.
Yes, guys.